Medieval Times Dinner and Tournament opened its doors for the first time in Kissimmee, Florida in 1983. Since then, Medieval Times has welcomed 65 million guests to enter its castles across the United States and Canada to explore the many splendors of the medieval past. During a 2-hour dinner and show, our royal nobles, the guests to the castle, enjoy a 4-course medieval feast while beholding the excitement of horses, falcons, and knights in the joust. From the minute our guests step into the castle halls, they are welcomed as our lords and ladies, transported back in time to a period when kings and queens and their brave knights of the realm ruled the lands. The castle in Schaumburg, Illinois opened in 1991 as the fourth of currently 9 Medieval Times castle locations. Just minutes from O'Hare International Airport, the Chicago Castle, as it is called, performs over 400 shows per year in an arena that can seat 1,420 royal nobles. During a sold-out performance, the Chicago Castle employs 160 team members from 12 different departments. These team members have unique responsibilities, ranging from the care of the beautiful Andalusian stallions, defense of the royal family as a knight of the realm, or service to the guests for their enjoyment and refreshment. All of our team members work to put on the same performance, and every person, no matter the job, has the ability to enhance a visiting noble's engagement in the show. Members of the team at Medieval Times Chicago have the unique opportunity, whether serf or wench, squire or knight, to become more than just co-workers, but a family. New hires and medieval veterans alike have a story to share about how Medieval Times Chicago has come to be much more than a workplace, but a home.
We came to the show, and I was working at Harper College as a sign language interpreter, and I said, I've got to get a job here. I applied the next day, and that was back when everything was pretty new, and I had to keep calling. We called it the food and beverage office, and I had to keep calling, for a couple of weeks. I called every couple of days, any news, whatever, because everything was like, we have a stack of applications that high. Everybody wanted to work here. It was the newest, most exciting, most different thing in the whole area. So I had to kind of follow up on that, and finally they hired me. I think I had to wait maybe 3 weeks or so, but it seemed like an eternity for me, because I decide I want something, I go for it.
I was in California. I was on vacation with my sister. And my brother was already working for the company for a couple years or 3 years. And then it was an opportunity in Stables, and he asked me to be part of the team. So at first I didn't want to, so I went and watched the show, and I was hooked. And then I applied. I was gonna stay for a couple months because I was on vacation, and I never left.
It was actually completely by chance. I had run into a friend I hadn't seen in a very long time, and I went to his house, and his mom had just came and seen the show here, and I had the long hair and everything at the time already, and she said I looked exactly like one of the guys here, and that I kind of joked and said, yeah, I'm going to get a job there tomorrow.
When the place first opened, I worked for a different dinner theater, and we performed here as a part of the greater Woodfield Convention and Tourism Bureau. So we came out one day and it had just opened. And then we performed with other acts in the arena that night. And I thought, wouldn't it be awesome to work here? But I don't know how to ride a horse. And golly, it's so fun. And then I would ride past it. It's the biggest billboard in the world. And I'd go, oh, I wish I could work there. So I had thought about it for a while, but never really thought it was going to happen.
When I was a kid, I didn't know this place existed. I wish I would have. I see so many kids come in, and I never got to enjoy that when I was a child. Up in Wisconsin, where I was from, we had never heard of medieval times. So I wish I could have pictured myself as a kid growing up, wishing I was going to grow up to be a Knight of the Realm, but it was a fantasy that I didn't realize until much later in life when I found out about this place existing. I graduated my Bachelor of Arts back in 2006, and eventually I got hired to play the villain of a stunt show down here in Illinois for a summer. After that was going to be ending, I, as any actor would, needed to find a new job. So I was looking around for who was auditioning, where I could audition for my next gig, and it just so happened to come to me that Medieval Times was hiring for knights. That was when I first heard about the show and actually came out here to see the show, kind of see what I'd be getting involved in, talked with some of the performers and the head knight at the time. When my job ended playing the villain of that one stunt show contractually, I started work here, and the rest is history. Medieval history.
I went to school for graphic design and video animation and production. I've always loved fantasy and role-playing and medieval times movies, but I've never thought about working at a medieval times dinner tournament. In fact, I didn't know there was a medieval times castle in the area until I saw the job listing on Craigslist, where they were advertising for a king, and I decided, hey, why not? I could do theater makeup. So I submitted my resume, and they said no, but they were looking for knights, so I tried to become a knight. Head knight said no, but they passed the resume along to the sound and lighting departments, where I was hired as a sound and lighting technician, or a spotlighter.
It's not a very exciting story, but yes, like I said, we came here about 2 months before I started working here with my family, and lived a couple hours south of here, and I was driving a truck at the time, and decided I had had enough of that job. And my sister actually saw on the Medieval Times website that they were looking for knight trainees. So I kind of had the long hair at the time, I guess kind of had the look. So I said, what the heck? So I just drove up here and interviewed with the head knight at the time, and that's it, pretty much it. Ended up getting the job and driving up here and moving up here, and been here ever since.
I found out about this job through another a co-worker I was working on a film with, and he's another stunt person, and he used to work here himself. His name is Matt Stratton. And so he was friends with Mike Shepard back in the day from the California Castle. Anyways, we were doing sword fighting in the film, and he's like, you want to learn more sword fighting and do horseback riding, go apply here and I'll refer you. So since then, I started working in 2008. I started in stables, worked my way up to squire, and then right up the ladder to senior knight.
It was a good time to come in, but when I actually got hired, I was not getting pushed towards it, but I got hired with the event staff manager at the time and the head knight, and I had a background with a different type of sword fighting, if you will, like out in Poland. I was part of a brotherhood called Opolski Bractwory Serski, which I could write that down, it'll be easier. But they fight. It's more like you fight for points, so you get points for head hits, body shots, and everything. And then during the actual tournaments and everything, you fight to hurt the other person or make them forfeit, you know. So then when I came into this, the hardest thing I had to do is learn to not hide the strike, to like show people where you're actually going to be striking, as opposed to being sneaky about it.
I didn't have any sort of major transportation. I was riding my bike around and walking to places, so I wanted someplace close to home, and then someplace that I felt I could still act and have fun in my job. So immediately, Medieval Times, even when I started in the gift shop and photo department, I can create a character and mess around with guests and have fun in that sense, and still develop my own acting skills while completing a basic job. When I was working in gift shop, maybe about a year and a half in, they said that they were interested in people to help out the sound and lighting department, add spotlighters, and maybe even learn some more. And seeing as that added to things that would apply to my theater background, I was very interested. So I started what we called cross-training in sound and lighting. Then after a few years of that and a lot of pestering by myself and my current manager, I was finally able to transfer to sound and lighting full-time, and I've been there for 2.5 years.
I thought I saw the show in Florida actually when I was 7 years old. I don't remember much. My brother fell asleep. I think he like his face like landed in the soup or something. I don't remember how that story went. When I was a sophomore in college, I was taking a stage combat class, and I had been doing some research and found out there was a castle out here, and I had asked my teacher about it, and he said, well, those guys all ride horses and they fight very differently than what we're learning in class. So I figured, well, I'm not really a stunt man. I wouldn't be able to do that stuff. I don't know how to ride. And then when I was a senior in college, my girlfriend had a car. So I was like, hey, we can drive somewhere. Let's go to the suburbs. Let's go see Medieval Times. It was like a weekday night. It was Wednesday night about 5 years ago. And we were in the yellow section, and Eddie was our knight. And so everything's come kind of full circle. Now I'm like best friends with him. At least I think so. And don't tell him I said that. And but yeah, we came and saw the show, and it was really fun. And I was watching them, doing the stunts and the fighting, and I was like, I could probably learn that. And this was right before I graduated theater school, so I was on track to be an actor. I was set to do, as soon as I graduated, I went to Maine for 10 weeks to do Shakespeare theater and rep. So I was doing like 4 different shows throughout the week. So while I was doing that, I was researching Medieval Times. I got in touch with the assistant head knight at the time, Keith Nadal, and I started messaging him back and forth, and that's how I found out I didn't have to know how to ride. And even not having any stage combat experience or acting experience, you don't really need any experience. They train you from the ground up. So as soon as I got back from that theater I was working at, I came in for an interview, and then the rest is history.
So I, fresh out of high school, went to Harper College for about 2 years. That first year at Harper, I was sitting with a couple of friends in the student area in Building A, and they were having a job fair going on at the time, and I was sitting there with one of my friends, and we saw the booth that was for Medieval Times. There was a couple of people there, a knight and I think a couple of other workers, and I just recalled all of the fun times that I had with my parents and my classmates when I had gone as a child. And I said to my friend, like, oh, that would be so cool if I worked there. Like, I had never thought about working at a place like in the entertainment business before, because all throughout high school I had really bad stage fright. But my friend said, yeah, that would be really cool. You should totally go and apply. And I was just a chicken, just a giant chicken. I can't. So he actually went up, got the application for me, and then came back and forced me to fill it out before I had to go to class. And I went up there and I dropped it off, and I was like, yeah, I don't really know what I would do, because I'd never had a job before. So I was like fresh off the plate. And I started in their photo department in November of 2013. And it was only a couple months that I did just strictly that before I went up to Sean, the showcast manager, and said, hey, that looks like fun.
Well, I just looking for a random job, and I found a posting online. I'm just like, oh, Medieval Times, I've been there before, it's pretty fun. So I decided to apply, and at first I got called by the photo department, and they said, well, you're not working, you can't work during the week, because I was at school. So they didn't call me back, and then I got a call from this awesome person named Edgar, and he called me up and was like, hey, do you want to come in for an interview for sound and lighting? And I'm like, sure, why not? This is awesome. So yeah, I absolutely love it.
Every year, it became a tradition. My family, we would go to Medieval Times at least once a year in the fall. Eventually, as I got older, I think the first time I applied, I was 19. I just applied just for fun to see if I would even get an interview. At the time, I did not really look the part at all. I had really short hair, was very thin. And I actually got a call from the head knight, Robert, and I was so ecstatic, keeping in mind that I lived in Wisconsin at the time. So when he wanted an interview, he wanted it the next day, so we had to drive 3.5 hours just to get here and do the interview. And at first it didn't, he didn't accept me, but he told me if I came back after working out a little more and trying to look the part a little bit better, that he would consider it more. So that's exactly what I did. I spent the next 2 years doing nothing else but devoting myself to trying to become a knight at Medieval Times. I quit my day job. I decided to work overnight at a gym, so I got a free membership. That's all I did every day was go work out and then work until I felt like I was able to do it again. And then I sent in another application, had an interview, and it all went very well.
Oh, when I was a child, definitely. I was here for the first show back in, I want to say 91. And, you know, I grew up, I still am a fan of medieval fantasy, anything medieval, history, you know, fictional or non-fictional. And sure, I mean, I was practicing the sword fight with wooden swords and shields back then. It wasn't a lifetime goal, but it sort of became one. I came back around. I guess I accidentally avoided it. Well, I was sort of at an impasse in my life. I was deciding what I wanted to do. I tried starting some businesses on my own, and I didn't like them. So I was trying different things. I had saved up some money, and I just sort of took off from my last job. And Medieval Times was just something that was swimming in the back of my head for fun, and my sister works in marketing, so she met up with marketing for Medieval Times, and she said, you know, my brother would be perfect for you guys. And she asked him, well, what is required of him? And the knight asked her if I had long hair. She said yes. And then the knight asked her if I was alive. She said yes. She said, fine, he's perfect, have him come in. And I told myself that if I didn't like this job, I'd be moving out of the state, actually. I was ready to just, you know, go and try something new, start a new life. But here I am.
When I originally got hired on at the castle, I was a stable technician or horse handler. And that was a lot of fun. I absolutely loved the horses. They're all completely amazing. So beautiful, and they all have their own little personalities and such. But when I actually got hired on at the castle, I didn't even know they had falcons. So when I got hired on and I saw there was falcons, and like I said, I noticed they had an opening for the falconry position. So I switched to sound and lighting, doing the spotlighting, and that freed up some of my time to be able to work with the birds. And that's when they trained me and got me in. And after I switched over to the falconry department, it took them about 3 months to get me flying in the show. And I've got some fun feathered friend coworkers that I absolutely love.
Never. I actually didn't ever see the show until I actually got the job. So it was pretty interesting to come and actually see the show after never seeing it as a kid and hearing about all the kids like loving it. I loved it even at 31 years old, so it's pretty fun. I've known Mario for a long time, and I used to train with him for a while back in the day, and I've known him about 11 years now. And he's been training my horse for about 2 years now, and he kind of convinced me that I should come and work here at the castle, and so I applied, and it's kind of been history since then. So, and I've really been enjoying it quite a bit.
Well, I was actually going to do paperwork with one of my friends up a little bit farther past Algonquin, and I was like, oh, I didn't know I lived this close to the Medieval Times. I'm gonna go find out when the next show is. So I rolled them into the parking lot, went into the office to find out the next show, and I saw that they had a now hiring sign out in the office. I'm like, might as well fill out an application. A couple of days later, I got a call from the head knight, and he asked me to come in for an interview. Did that, and then like not even a day later, I got a call from the general manager to come in for my next interview, and ended up getting hired, started working here.
Well, I think that's one of the beauties of Medieval Times. You know, they give you the opportunity to grow. I started just as a stable hand. I worked doing that for a year, and then I became a squire. After I became squire, I became a knight. After a while, they gave me the opportunity, and I became a horse trainer. And I've been doing that for a while.
So it's kind of like a you earn it type situation. If you show you work really hard, you know, you'll get to do a little bit more in the show every time. So that's kind of how we do it here. So it's nice to have to actually work for it. So when you get to do something new, it's really rewarding because you've already worked very hard to get to that point. It depends on the person really, but it takes a lot of time to really learn. It's not just, you know, the routines, it's the skill level and learning the horses and which horse do you get along best with, and maybe not even that. It's just, you know, trying to expand what you do and how you ride each horse differently. So you have to learn the routines, of course, but you also have to learn, you know, a horse's strengths and weaknesses throughout the routine so you can kind of ride them the best of your ability if you're able to.
I started out as just a spotlighter, but as I got more involved in the department, as I got to know the people a bit more, I got to learn how to call the cues for a show. They let me learn lightboard, and then a lot later I got to learn how to run the soundboard and even how to manage the department, even if it was for only one night.
Oh, I mean, all of them have changed. Like I said, when most all of them come in here with no experience. So, you know, we see all the weaknesses and we have to push them through that to where it's not a weakness anymore. So I've watched every one of them grow from where they started to where they are now.
It's a very hard job being a squire, absolutely. Helped get me in shape, and I was pretty out of shape, so night training was not easy for me at the time. So it took me a little while to get through that. And I would say I started doing more riding before I ever got in the shows at night. So I'd already been riding for a little bit, but just over the years, I would say the biggest change has been, well, aside from getting better at the fights and showmanship, I would say just I've improved a lot in riding over the years, and to the point now where, you know, I'm one of the guys actually, you know, teaching the new guys how to ride, how to lunge them, and I'm actually training horses to put them in the show and get them used to the environment that we're in. So it's quite a big difference.
I had to make myself look better. I had to do something to get noticed. But really, when other knights started leaving, then it was time for us to make our move and step it up. And so once the training came around, I pushed myself every day to do the best that I can.
I did my first show as a knight on October, I want to say 12th of 2007, so it was a fast track. And then from there, I was a knight for a number of years before crossing over to a more managerial standpoint with solely performing as the Master of Ceremonies and taking over the showcast as of August in 2009. And I've been doing that ever since.
And then I advanced up to assistant head knight, and then naturally when the head knight moved on, I was the next one in line and they chose me to be head knight. So now, on top of doing the shows, I oversee all of the training of the jousting games horses, training of all the new recruits, all the squires going into night, and all that. So,
When I was starting off in medieval times, I was a spotlighter. I was still going to school for video and animation production. One of the things I had to do to graduate was to take internship hours, and the photo manager at the time said I could do internship hours with the photo department, so I helped out photo. And I apparently did it so well that the management at the time wanted me to transfer over to photo, which I did for a short period of time, but then I quickly transferred back to sound and lighting. Sometime later, as bills started piling up after graduating, I decided to switch over to the food and beverage department, where I could earn a little bit of extra income and tips, so I could pay off some of my bills. And that's where I am today.
But I had some interesting experiences, like when I was doing overnight, the nicest horse in the world, the Frisian that we had, Machino, his stall was leaking and I had to put a halter on him and I didn't know how to do it. And he never bullied anybody, but after 3 times of trying to put it on him, he just walked right out, started walking up to the other horses and like smelling up on them and like basically laughing at me. When I got close to him, he just ran straight down to the arena, and this was at 4 in the morning. So I called our general manager, our operations manager, my manager. It's terrible. So he's running around having the time of his life, bucking around, and then I would yell at him from the ramp, and he would run up, and I would jump over the ramp into the lift we had back there, and just hiding like a little kid. And then he was just messing with me. He went up to the doors and was like playing with the doors with his lips. So I thought he wanted to run outside. So I started having many heart attacks. So I finally our operation manager called me back at 4 in the morning. And then when he came in, he just walked right up like I would now, you know, just walk right up and just held his nose and walked him back to the stall. So I was embarrassed. But
I don't know, one of the funniest moments I've seen is, I guess we used to have a princess come out and do a scene with the prince. It was a flashback scene, yes. So we had a princess come out and do a flashback scene, and well, they didn't have anybody come down and do the princess, and the scene was starting. So one of the knights that was standing there, just he was a really big guy, like huge muscles. He just whipped into action and threw the little cape on that the princess throws on, and it was sleeveless too. So, and I was out there for that scene, but I remember the princess coming out with these huge arms and tattoos. And he's petting the horse and everything, little spotlights on him. I don't know how the prince kept a straight face. I was one of the guys out there and I was just crying. But yeah, there's a lot of little funny scenes like that, but that was definitely one of the funniest. And somebody even in the audience yelled out, "Hey, nice arms, princess." So obvious, it's very obvious, of course.
There was one time in a show where both the knights were coming out for a fight, and they weren't doing a joust, so all they had to do was ride out to the middle. And they were both somewhat newer riders, and they both ended up on higher strung horses. And when the curtain opened, both horses came flying out, and they took the guys right past center and ran them all the way around the arena in a complete circle. And we all knew that the horses, they were being taken for a complete ride. They weren't controlling the horses at all, and they were terrified. But both horses ran like the same pattern across from each other and crossed so perfectly that it almost looked like it was rehearsed in the proper thing. But both of them were completely, had no control over what was happening at all. It was really funny to see. I think we have that one on tape somewhere too. So.
Another memory is my own embarrassment as an actor. And it happened way back in the first show that I started doing here. But there was a point in the show where we addressed one of the knights as king by name. And we would generally use their first names. But at the very beginning of the tournament, the Lord Chancellor addresses that knight by name. So that night, he decided to address that knight as Gretchen. This is a male knight, and his wife's name was Gretchen, and he thought it would be funny. At the end of the tournament, I'm very angry in the role, and I have to tell Gretchen that we've ridden together for many years. So here I was as the angry king at this character, and I said, "Gretchen," and I totally lost it. I totally started laughing. I felt totally out of character. I was not a rock on stage at all. It was a funny memory, but I probably wasn't at my best as an actor. And I hated that Lord Chancellor after that.
Probably the pranks that get played. Everybody downstairs played a prank on me like my first week. They pretended that I was already going to be in carousel when I haven't practiced, and so they kind of had me like all panicked that I was supposed to be in it, but I hadn't had any practice. So I got dressed like in a hurry, and I got on the horse, and they're handing me like surcingles and stuff that aren't even like a part of the show, and I'm just like so oblivious to it. And then they're like, everybody goes out for carousel, and I'm still there, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, haha, it was a prank. It was a lot more funny like at the time, but I still think about it, and it's hilarious to really think about, because I just totally fell for it in like the worst way possible. So, I mean, every time I think about anything bad, I think about that. It usually makes me laugh. So it's good to have a sense of humor around here.
We are constantly pranking each other, small ways every day. One that stands out the most was closer to when I started. I want to say I'd been working here for about 6 months, and I was exhausted from a triple on a Saturday, and I was up taking care of my horse in stables, and it was a Sunday. I'm sorry, it wasn't a Saturday, it was a triple Sunday, and they had carrots out. Well, they were clean and they looked delicious, so I grabbed one and ate it. And it had a little bit of grain on it. Well, the knight Tim gave me a worried look and said that, you know, you shouldn't eat those. They put steroids in those for the horses. That has medicine in it for the horses. And I didn't really believe him at first, but he kept pressing it and pressing it. And to make a long story short, I mean, they got everybody involved. Robert got involved. Mario got involved. They pretended to call a doctor which was just Travis doing a really bad job of pretending to sound Mexican over Mario's phone. Mario and Robert were telling me that I had to get a shot. It was gonna be a big needle, to save my life. They're all in on it. I don't think I really bought it ever, but I played along and it was funny. But we do stuff. I mean, we don't always try to scare each other with our lives. The job does it just fine, but we try to keep the morale up. I think that's important. And what we do, it can get. There's a lot of testosterone. The locker room's in the sand too, so we try to keep things funny.
It happened. The light came on right after what we call carousel in the show, which is like a horse demonstration where the knights ride the horses with some flags. But anyways, so light comes on. I was actually the first one to notice it because I was still very kind of like, pay attention to everything. So I saw it and I was like, psst, psst, red light. And so the king at the time then noticed it. He notified Sean and they proceeded to tell some jokes to the audience. And one of the ones that I remember most clearly was Sean going to the audience, or to the king rather. Why did the king go to the dentist? And the king goes, I don't know, Chancellor. Why? And Sean turns to the audience and goes, to get his teeth crowned. And there was a silence, followed by one little laugh, but it was ridiculously funny because earlier in the show we make the joke of him not being funny, and then he goes to that, and then he goes, see? He singles the one guy that laughs, he singles him out and goes, see, I am funny, he thinks I'm funny. And it was so ridiculous that I almost started laughing, and they almost turned it over to me, but it was just like, no, I can't do this, I'm gonna actually start laughing. But then they were able to reel it back in and we continued on with the show. But that was the very first red light that I had ever dealt with, and it was hysterical, basically. It was really fun. So that was probably one of the funniest moments that I remember.
There was a good one too where, now I'm remembering a bunch. There's one where I believe Scott was Northman. He came back from the first scene, and for the Northman, their mic, they don't control it. It's controlled by Lights and Sound. Lights and Sound had left it on a little too long, and the crowd had been booing Scott. So as Scott's getting off his horse, he just says, they love me, they really love me. And it was still playing in the arena. So on the DVD, you just see him exit, then you hear him just say, they love me, they really love me. That's a good one. And then I think Robert had one where there's a part where the Northman draws his sword and then holds everyone on guard and goes in a circle. And the wrong cue got played. So it's supposed to be like like intense music. And instead it played one of the night intro music. So it was like, so and he's trying to like keep a straight face while this like silly music's playing.
If there's ever a day where, you ride out on your horse and you're just not feeling good, you have a headache or you're tired or whatever, part of what really helps drive that performance, because you obviously want to maintain the same type of a standard for performance, bringing forth the energy and the big bombastic, excitement that you hold as a standard, feeding off the energy from the audience when you have a 1,500 person full arena of people going nuts just when you throw your hands up in the air. It feeds you. You can drive off of that and help, I suppose, give even more than what you think you're capable of giving. Maybe one of my favorite experiences ever in the show was when I was when I first got to win your first fight, or you first get to be the champion of the tournament. You defeat the other knight and you throw your hands up in the air and everybody goes wild, and it's just that feeling is something that cannot be matched.
My favorite memory, I think, is the first time I saw as king a family came into the photo tower where we make a photograph with them when they first arrived. And it was a really hot day, and the highway had numerous accident reports on the way in, so I knew traffic was really difficult. And as the guests came in, you could just tell they'd been in traffic a long time, it was really hot. They were, thank heavens we're here. And as soon as the children made the turn around the doorway and came in here to the Hall of Arms and saw this beautiful room, their eyes click, and you can see in their eyes that I'm in a real castle. This is a real king. And they forget they've been in the car for 2 hours and 45 minutes, and that the air conditioning isn't working, and that the traffic is bad, and mom and dad are grumpy. All of that goes out the wayside. They're in a real castle, and there's a king and a princess. And I think that was one of my favorite memories the first time I saw that. And I see it every time we do a tournament, but that's a really good one.
Well, I have a lot of memories that were really fond to me here at Medieval Times. The one that always sticks out the most, it was during my time in Sound and Lighting. I was working at the dungeon. There was this one little princess, even though I was dressed up as a big burly dungeon master with a sword and I was trying to act like a big bully, she thought I was the sweetest thing ever. She asked me all questions about the horses, she asked me questions about the knights and the princesses, and I would improvise as many things as I can to her, and she would just eat it all up, like I was telling her a really cool bedtime story. And then when it came time for the show to happen, when she was starting to walk away with her parents, she quickly turned around and ran at me and gave me a big hug as a goodbye. And it was probably the most adorable thing that's ever happened to me at the castle, and it always sticks into my brain. I've probably had more enjoyable times after that, or since that, but that one always sticks in my brain because it was the first time that's ever happened to me.
There was this family that came in, and there was this boy, and so eventually they ended up coming up to me, and the mom was kind of leading him along, and I said hi to all of them, and the mom's like, "So what is it you have here?" And I said, "Oh, this is Liberty. She's a Lanner Falcon. She's 10 years old." And I noticed that she was kind of trying to explain the bird to her son, and I'm like, "Wait a second." And she's like, "He's blind." And I'm like, "Okay." So then in as most detail as I possibly could, I started, describing the feathers and the colors and the texture of his, Liberty's feet, and just what exactly her beak looks like and kind of what it feels like to an extent. Because I couldn't, this was the one and only time I felt awful for not allowing the boy to touch the, Liberty, to be able to feel stuff, but with everybody else around, they would all want to also. So I felt awful about that, but I did let him touch Liberty's hood and kind of feel, what the hood was made out of and stuff like that. And he was absolutely in love with the bird and the description that I was giving him. And the mom was so pleased about all that. So before I ended up saying goodbye to them, I figured out the table that they were sitting at, and I just kept it in the back of my mind. So after I was done flying, I actually took my own personal falconer's glove, and I went walking up to their table with it was a pretty decent sized feather. And so I went walking up to his table, and I said hi to the mom first, and then I'm like, "So I have something, I want him to try on one of my falconer's gloves just to kind of feel what that's like and hands-on experience." And so she cleaned up his hands as best she could with the chicken was on it. I didn't care. It was my own glove anyway. If it gave him a smile and memories, I was more than happy to do it. So she cleaned up his hands best she could. And then, he tried on my glove, and he was just feeling it and feeling the outside and how thick it was and moving his hands in it, which was really neat. And then I handed him the feather, and he was just stroking this feather for the longest time, and you could just tell he was so amazed and happy with what I did, mostly because of the birds. But I wanted to give him a piece of the show that he wouldn't have had otherwise. So I let him keep that feather, and the mom ended up, writing a review about it later, which was sweet. I got a copy of it. I have it hung up on my wall. But I mean, that boy was amazing. I've never had anybody to that extent that was so happy with what I did. And I'll never forget that boy. He was amazing.
One that was really amazing was after 9/11. The towers fell on a Tuesday, and we had Wednesday and Thursday shows through, and then through the weekend. And they canceled the Wednesday and the Thursday shows, and then I think maybe even Friday, I can't remember back now, but they canceled a couple of them. And then for several months after that, the champion night, instead of coming out with his color flag, would come out with the American flag. And everybody would cheer. And I remember one show shortly thereafter that during announcements, they said, and we have somebody special sitting in the front row of green. They had given him special upgrades and everything. A New York City firefighter. And you talk about a standing ovation. I'm sorry. And it was amazing.
It's a castle in the middle of the United States. You don't get that. That's amazing.
Medieval Times is a special place to visit because it's a place where you could go to stuff your face silly and watch people beat each other up in the sand. Anytime during the year, whenever there's a show, you could always come in and escape reality and role play that you're in the past.
And everybody that comes here enjoys it. Everything from kids to the parents to elderly people. I mean, everybody. People who like horses, regular people, people that just like action, people who like theater. There's something for everybody in the show, and it's very unique and in its own thing. And I've always been proud to be part of it.
It's so much fun because you can do this as a family, you can, do this with friends, and it's not really, I guess it's not really for everyone, but it's definitely something that I keep coming back to as a guest, and it's a lot of fun to just a lot of fun to go to. The servers are nice. I'd like to think we were really nice. We do our best to put our guests first.
I mean, there's something for everybody, from the children. Some of the best parts of, doing the show, like games, you throw the flowers, for the little girls, and it just makes their day, So it makes their day. The boys are watching the fights and getting into the fights. So you have the kids, and then you have also the adults, and they enjoy coming here with a few of their friends, having a few drinks and cheering for their night.
You get to have this big, huge, giant, amazing bird fly above your heads as you're eating and sipping on soup.
And I think the product we sell here is extremely unique. And the fact that you get to see how human and animal interact in a very positive environment. I think it's very unique that, like, even with the falcon and everything, that you could be in an indoor environment and have all this, like, wonder, if you will. So it's difficult to transport people back in time because of all the necessities we have now as human beings, especially with lighting and air conditioning and everything. I don't think people would come and see us if we really brought them back to the medieval ages. And
I mean, this is a unique show, and what you see here is real. It's not like I don't know. It's not fake. I mean, yeah, we spend a lot of time training on the fights and horseback riding so that we build up our skill in what we have to do, because that's important, obviously. But everything you see is genuine, and you can't see it anywhere else except in a movie, maybe. So it's really exciting to see it live. To really feel the action of the show. And
but I think what makes Medieval Times special is, from the top down, the guest's experience is really focused on. And I'll give you something that may sound kind of petty or silly, but when the king walks through a particular area of the castle, all associates, all team members bow as the king goes by or as the princess goes by. And I think the kids and the adults both take a look at that and say, they do things right here. They go the extra mile, you know what I mean? Just to enhance that experience. That is really a king. Yes, we're all going to bow as he goes by. And, I always say, look, you're not bowing to Dave Gordon. I'm driving an Avatar. you're bowing to the crown and the cape and the tunic, because it all depends on who's playing king that day. So yeah, I think that's one of the things I think that really makes it successful. When you call the national reservation line, you're addressed as my lord or my lady. They don't have to do that, but they do. So I think that attention to detail is really what probably makes Medieval Times as successful as it's been.
I like to hear everybody's story, why they're here, how long they've been here for, and what their goals are, because I think everybody is different. And some people have been here for 10 years and they don't want to do anything else, and they just enjoy their job here. So to me, that's pretty cool when someone's been here that long and they love it that much that they just want to stick around that long. So to me, that's pretty special.
We're like a big, dysfunctional family, I would say. You have people, my age all the way down to people that could be my kids, maybe my grandkids, who knows. All ages. Educated and non-educating. I've got a master's degree, so what? I enjoy working here, There are people with not much education, and that's fine. People from all different backgrounds, all different reasons. People that, sit in knit, or people that, just have other things they're involved in. A lot of people are involved in theater. We have a lot of creative people here, so that opens up just a can of characters right there that talking about different kinds of people. And my relationship with them is, I would miss them terribly. Like, I go on vacation and I come back, it's like, all right, what happened while I was gone? That kind of stuff. And we all work well together. I can really say that everybody in our department helps each other, and that's why we're successful, basically.
Well, as the Master of Ceremonies, I spend a great deal amount of time not only with our fellow performers, but with a lot of the other departments as well, whether it be the retail departments or the arena servers or the bartenders or the cash control department. I spend a lot of time with a lot of our different employees while within the castle, just doing the day-to-day operational procedures that we do. And with that, I meet a lot of people. I'm not just talking about guests because of the fact that we see so many people that come through the doors in terms of that, but with the employees, we have over 200 employees in this building. It's quite the production to get underway just for one show to go up. That being said, I, over time, do really get to be able to build and help, I do over time get to build nice, positive, professional, great, fun relationships with the people that I not only perform with, but with the other people that I work with as well. You know people and you see people day to day for such a long period of time in some instances that you really do become close.
I try to respect everyone that I work with, and it's interesting because as King or Lord Chancellor, you're on stage a lot, you interact with the knights a lot, but you also have to remember you interact with the photo people, and you interact with the gift shop people, and you interact with the other folks in the retail department. So I think I try to offer respect to everybody that has a job to do, as well as management, of course, but the folks in bar and beverage. So I just try and give them all the respect that I hope they would extend to me as well. But I seem to get along very well with everybody. Why? What have you heard? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think I get along with everybody.
I relate in a respectful, chivalric, and friendly way with my coworkers. I do think that, I subscribe to the idea that you're only as good as your weakest person when you're on a team. And so I'm always trying to help out people that I think need it without being bossy. At least I try not to be. One person who stands out the most to me is Eddie. He's a great teacher, and I have a lot of respect for him and his passion for the job. I want to match it if I can. I want to see them all succeed. They should all have a little bit of excitement working here. This is fun to me. The way I've related with other, if I was to compare to other jobs of people I've worked with in my life, this is by far the best, or close, let's say, So I'm very happy.
I feel like we're a family here, We always look out for each other. Our lives are in each other's hands. It's a good work environment knowing that we can all get along, and that's fun.
I think we're pretty friendly. We're, again, like a very family dynamic. We can joke around with each other. We poke fun at each other. It's really a lot of fun just to come to work every day. We will interact with them. We don't interact with our favorite food and beverage person, Crispo, a lot. We'll, say hi to him randomly wave to him in the arena or something like that. And it's really, I don't know, it's really fun to just interact with other departments. It kind of seems like we're kind of distant since we are up in our towers most of the time. So it's nice to interact with other departments and, not kind of be isolated up here. So.
When I first moved here, I didn't have anybody I was living with because I didn't know anybody. And then I became really good friends with Michael, who started just a day before me. And then we eventually became roommates. And from there, just a really good friendship formed. As I got to know people better just through, work parties and such, I, found a lot of people that like to play Dungeons & Dragons. And so do I. So I ended up setting up a very large group of Dungeons & Dragons players so that everybody could get together outside of work and have a good time.
So I'll put it from the perspective of like an 18-year-old coming like straight out of high school or anything. It's such a dynamic group of individuals that you get here, that everyone has their own goals and paths in life that they come. This is usually just a pit stop for many people. There aren't many departments here that you can make a career out of. So it's very interesting to see, like, you'll meet interesting people that have very unique lives that you don't know where anyone's going to be going afterwards. So you can learn a lot from everyone. I mean, we have, I don't know how many employees now, but it's well over 100. And each one of them has a story, and each one of them has some kind of unique quality or some kind of strength you can learn from. So I think just the volume of the people that you interact with on a daily basis, it really teaches you like respect and courtesy, and it shows you how the general public treats some people, and then it helps you make decisions on the type of person you want to be when you're in a different environment. Say if you're working gift shop, then you're in retail. Keep that in mind when you're going to shop somewhere, So we cover a lot of different departments that you're going to be experiencing in your life. So I think it's the sheer volume of individuals that are here, and we all have very similar schedules, so you're going to see them a lot. Yeah.
But this place, you don't just form friendships. You learn stuff that you may not have ever thought you would learn. Also, you generate such great memories. I mean, there's even on a day when it's a small show, and if nothing really super exciting happens, you still get this feeling that you brought joy to other people. There's a sign that's above the tunnel in our arena on backstage that says, "Once beyond this point, one becomes more than a man. How will you be remembered?" And that gives you a whole thing to think about. I mean, for me personally, the feeling of walking out into that arena during first prez is one of the greatest feelings of my life. I mean, hearing the cheer of the crowd, knowing that even though we're sweating our rear ends off out here in the sand and working really hard and putting ourselves through a personal personal work out here, it's like leg day every day. We're making the people happy. The little kids are loving to see what they see. They like, oh, I want to be that one day. Giving them something to aspire to. Definitely worth every minute of it.
Medieval Times is a special place to work because it's an environment, one of the few environments that you could work at if you're a nerd and not feel like you're working. Because you're surrounded with nerds, you're surrounded with nerd culture, you're having fun. And so like if you find a job where you can have fun at, you'll never have to work a day in your life.
We're all dedicated to the best guest experience we can have. And we have fun off stage, and we laugh, and we prank each other and things like that. But everyone seems to keep close to their attention and close to their vest, close to where they want to drive their energy to make that guest experience as best as it can. People say, how many people are coming tonight? To me, they're all 1,500. They're all sold out. I don't think we hold 1,500, but they're all sellouts. So whether there's 100 people in the arena or whether there's 1,470, they should all get the same. They should all get the same experience.
I am medieval times.
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 Yo soy medieval times.
I am 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 medieval times. I am medieval times.
I am medieval times.
I am medieval times.
I am medieval times.
We are medieval times.